Welcome everyone. In this video, I'm going to talk through my take on the Green Mega Caffeine deck of the Vibes TCG. This deck is super great for climbing the ladder because it has very quick games and is very powerful. That being said, I'm not 100% sure that I would take this to a tournament just because it has a very linear game plan and it's easy for people to know what you're trying to do, which then enables them to kind of play around that. That being said, we can counterplay that a little bit by the tech choices. But either way, for playing the ladder, it's a super strong deck. All right, so in this video, we're first going to talk about the composition of the deck, go through all the different card choices. Then we're going to talk about the tech cards and kind of what your options are there, and kind of talk through for what type of metas you would want to put what tech cards in. We're going to talk about budget substitutions, and then talk through the strategy of the deck, including a guide on how to mulligan. After that, we're going to jump into a few games to see the deck in action. And during the gameplay, I'm going to talk through each of my decisions in detail so that you can learn my thought process for playing the deck, which will help you pilot this to become a dummy thick as well. All right, so let's get started. So the namesake of the deck is Too Much Caffeine and Green Mega Penguin, which is one of the win conditions of the deck. So what Too Much Caffeine does is it's a relic that costs one fish that says at the start of action time, each player may choose a penguin, flop those penguins. This relic is really good for locking down your opponent's board because you can basically just pick their most valuable penguin and flop it. And it's also really cheap. So think of it just kind of like as a one fish removal that you can switch which penguin it's removing as a function of time. Then you'll play Green Mega Penguin, and what makes Green Mega Penguin work so well with Too Much Caffeine is it says this penguin can't be chosen by anything. So if your opponent wants to choose with their option of what to flop with Too Much Caffeine, they can't choose the Green Mega Penguin. And also on top of that, at the start of action time, you put a vibe counter on this penguin. So that means that this penguin is growing over time. And so really the deck really goes around this combo where you're trying to get Green Mega Penguin out as quickly as possible, play a bunch of Too Much Caffeine, and then just kind of freeze the board state with the Too Much Caffeine. Your Green Mega Penguin grows faster than they can play big penguins. They'll be limited on playing actions because Too Much Caffeine is removing their penguins, and then you'll win the game. And because you're basically winning each vibe check, you're basically just playing 2 rods a turn, which means you can just get to 14 really fast. All right. And then the other win condition is basically the popcorn package. So Popcorn Penguin says at the start of action time, ice a penguin that's vibing the least. And so you'll basically play a Popcorn Penguin. They'll have a bunch of penguins that are locked down with Too Much Caffeine. And then you'll buff the Popcorn Penguin to 4 or 6, sometimes even 8 vibe. And so this can then every turn just remove one of their penguins. And so this is like the core engine of the deck is this Too Much Caffeine works really well with Popcorn, which works really well with buff cards, which works those buff cards then, especially the buff cards we're playing 2 buff cards, or the first one is Inspiring Story. And Inspiring Story even can buff Green Mega Penguin. So you just get up and like these 2 win conditions just mesh really well together, which makes this deck just function like a really smooth clockwork aggressive deck. So Inspiring Story basically buffs your Popcorn Penguin and your Green Mega Penguin. And the reason it can buff the Green Mega Penguin is it's not actually choosing it because it's buffing everything across the board. And then the other buff card we'll play is Sliding Penguin. So Sliding Penguin, unlike Inspiring Story, you can't actually buff the Green Mega Penguin with it. But on the plus side, it only costs 4 fish, which makes it fit in the curve much better. Because the curve you're trying to play with this deck is you're trying to basically pass turn 1. On turn 2, win the vibe check with the most powerful 2-drop we can play. And we'll get to those in a second. And then we play Sliding Penguin, and which is a 4 vibe. But it's actually 6 vibe because you can boost it by 2 for that vibe check. So you'll win turn 3. And then on turn 4, you play Popcorn Penguin, and then you buff the Popcorn Penguin with a Sliding Penguin. You have 2 4 vibe penguins, and the Popcorn Penguin can then basically remove any penguin up to 4 vibe, which now, since we're only really on turn 4, your opponent won't really have anything greater than 4 vibe. So Sliding Penguin. So this is really the core of the deck. This is the 2 win conditions, and because they kind of have overlapping cards, it works really well together. All right. So then To get this win condition rolling as quickly as possible, we really want to win the vibe check on turn 2. And so the best penguin for doing that is Introvert Penguin. Also, on the number of 2 drops, we really want to run somewhere between 10 and 12. So for the core list, we're going to run 10, and then we'll talk about the final 2 in the tech slots. So Introvert Penguin is so strong because it's 2 fish for 6 vibe. And so you'll play Introvert Penguin, you will always win the vibe check on turn 2. It's also really strong in the mirror because you need to have initiative in the mirror. And the downside of it doesn't participate in the vibe check unless it's the only penguin in the huddle doesn't matter because by the time it's not the only penguin, its only purpose was to accelerate you out of the early game. And on top of that, it's colorless, so it doesn't produce Pudge, but this deck doesn't run any actions besides saucy actions. So Introvert Penguin is not a problem for that at all. The other 2-drop, which has some flexibility, is SupportiveFriend. So what SupportiveFriend does is it's only has 2 vibe, but it lets you put 2 vibe counters on any penguin. So you can put it on SupportiveFriend to make it a 2/4, which is as strong as you're going to get outside of Introvert. But there are some rare situations where those 2 vibe counters can be put somewhere else. So, for example, I was in a game recently where my opponent played a snow globe, and the only reason I won that game is because my supportive friend was able to boost a different penguin with those vibe counters. And so, supportive friend has more flexibility. So now on the last 2-drop, right? Because we want to run 10 total, because that's will give you a 90+% chance of having a 2-drop. Is we're gonna play Penguin of the Falling Leaves. Now, however, you can play whatever 2-drop penguin you want. I like playing Penguin of the Falling Leaves because it's the 2/4 that is using the aggressive yellow deck. And so you can kind of trick your opponent into, like, let's say, for example, they have to choose between playing a Popcorn Penguin as a rod or a Inspiring Story as a rod. If they knew I was the caffeine deck, they would play the Popcorn Penguin as the rod. But if they think I'm the aggressive yellow deck, they might play the Inspiring Story as the rod. So Penguin of the Falling Leaves can kind of give you some mind games into making them think you're a deck which has a very different type game plan. So we'll put 2 copies of that in. The other one that if I was not a high ranked player, I would consider Frosty the Penguin, just because the only deck I've ever seen play this is the blue starter deck. And so you can really mess with your opponent to like think like, oh, you're playing the blue starter deck. Or Blossoming Penguin, because there's a lot of other green cards in here, you can make them think that you're playing like that like green Buffy deck instead. And you can keep that charade going for quite some time. So Blossoming Penguin is another one I would suggest. But you can also throw you can also throw in Bamboo Penguin or Moonlit Penguin. Like they all work. They all have their own little like mind psych out factors. Okay, so that's the 2-drops. So that's going to help us win the vibe check early. And now let's talk about card draw. So, right, this deck doesn't play any actions, so we have to rely on non-traditional card draw. So the first one we're going to use is BounceHouseRod. So because you're winning the vibe check so much, you actually end up getting a lot of rods that are played that from the top of your deck from winning the vibe check. So very often there's some really good stuff in your rods, and you often have like 8-9 rods to choose from. So BounceHouseRod basically lets you draw a card from your rods. And this is also really nice for when you're playing your tech cards, because during turn 1, you might need to play a tech card as a rod because you don't know what you're playing against. But then when you play BounceHouseRod later, you can get that tech card back. So that's our first piece of card draw. The second card draw, which is like sort of again pseudo card draw, is SneakyPenguin. And SneakyPenguin basically lets you look at the top card of your deck at the beginning of your turn, and then you can put it at the bottom. The reason SneakyPenguin works so well in this deck is, first of all, it doesn't require any pudge and it's not an action. But the second thing is this deck has a lot of useless cards in it. Like all of the 2-drops, you only need them on turn 2, and after that, you never need them again. So, or like SlidingPenguin also, like if you don't play it on turn 4, you probably won't need it. So SneakyPenguin really helps you filter out the like low quality cards of the deck that are there. They are there for a very specific purpose. But they're also like very often not needed. So depending on where the game is. And on top of that, this deck has actually 10 tech slots in it. So because there's so many tech slots, you know, SneakyPenguin is also good for filtering those out. So we'll put in SneakyPenguin. And then the last one is BrainyPenguin. So BrainyPenguin, again, it lets you just filter through draw 2 cards or discard 2 cards and draw 2 cards, which again, because this deck is really focused on this very specific few cards that work together in a certain way, BrainyPenguin is not really bad at all. The downside, because you're just filtering through the trash, the cards that aren't useful anymore, removing them from your hand, and then playing the cards that are impactful. Okay, so that's a card draw package. So this is what I would call the core deck. So if you're going to play this deck, you should start with this. I mean, except for Penguin of the Falling Leaves, right? Put in whatever two four you want. All right. So now that we have the core of the deck, let's talk about the tech slots. So the first tech slot that I love playing is HotRod. And the reason I like HotRod is it basically is the best card in the mirror. What it allows you to do is basically, it's like a mini inspiring story that only targets one penguin, but it actually enables you to boost Green Mega Penguin. And the way the mirror plays out, it's basically just a race to who can play their Green Mega Penguin first, and then who can buff it as big as possible. So Hot Rod really, really helps in the mirror. There are some other ways you could approach the mirror, but those other approaches require like a lot of combinations of cards. And Hot Rod is just simple. I have a really, really good win rate in the mirror, and it's because I run 4 hot rods. And because this deck is very strong right now in the meta, like there's a lot of them running across the ladder, like being built in order to handle the mirror well, I think is a very good decision. So I run 4 hot rods. And then the other card that I like running is GotEm. So what GotEm lets you do is it's really good against Bismo, like in Bismo decks, because they have Ascending Penguin and Penguin who's okay. Plus, it's also really good against the aggressive yellow deck because if you're able to lock down all of their penguins that are greater than 2 vibe, right? Because the only way that the aggressive yellow deck can beat this deck is with put your flippers in the air. And so Gotham is a way to counter that as long as you can keep them to only having 2 vibe penguins. So, however, I only run 2 copies of it. And the reason for that is just, first of all, there's just a lot of specialty rods in this deck already, but also like so many people are playing Inspiring Story right now. But I will say that like when I played this deck a lot, I actually stopped here. I basically put in four Gotems and 2 more Penguin of the Falling Leaves. So I think this is one arrangement of the deck that I think is the most consistent. And if you're not trying to go for the absolute highest win rate, but you just want like a really, really consistent deck, like this is what I would suggest starting with. However, there are 2 other matchups that I think this deck struggles with, and the first one is blue. So when you play blue, there are times when they can just board wipe you, right? They get 15 cards in your ice, and then they board wipe you, and then it's really hard to come back from that. So Bunkus, by playing 2 Bunkus, basically it has taken my blue matchup to be almost a 100% matchup because by the time you get 15 cards in your ice, you'll have seen 1 Bunkus, and then you just reset your ice back to 0, and they have to start all over again. And so by putting 2 Bunkus in, you're basically just not getting an auto win against blue, but it really, really puts the win rate against blue super high. It's not like a terrible matchup to begin with, but it's one that was definitely more like a 50-50 matchup, and putting 2 Bunkus in really flipped that matchup. And then the last one that I like is Misplace. And Misplace, what makes Misplace so powerful is, so first of all, one of the most difficult matchups is Bismo, and Misplace can basically stop them from playing out their either their Ascending Penguin or their Bunkus. And so a Misplace played at the right turn against Bunkus or against the Bismo deck can be super useful. The other thing that Misplace is actually really, really good for is very often when you're playing against the aggressive yellow deck or some sort of like green buff deck, they basically have clean up good or put your flippers in the air. And those cards, the way they work is right. They buff their board in a way where they will beat your Green Mega Penguin in terms of its size. But so then what Misplace is doing is they'll play their first, put your flippers in the air, but they won't actually win that turn. Especially you might then like got him a penguin or something like that to knock them off back down so they won't have 15 rods. And then you play Misplace, you select to put your flippers in the air, and then they can't play it again. And so, and if they have to take 1 turn off in order to, not your keys, the Misplace, it's over at that point. You have won. So Misplace is really, really good against Bismo, but it's also really, really good against decks that require finishing cards, and especially when they need multiple times of doing that in a row in order to actually close the game out. So here's a list I run, but let's talk about some other tech cards that that I've seen other people run that I think have merit to them. So the first one is just yeah, like I said, playing more two drops. But so Koi Penguin is very interesting because Koi Penguin actually gives you one more win condition. What Koi Penguin does, right? Because what you can do is you can play Koi Penguin. So if you like haven't found your Green Mega Penguin and haven't found too much caffeine, Koi Penguin with buff cards is just this really good win condition where you basically play Koi Penguin, you match their highest vibe, and then you buff it with Sliding Penguin or with Inspiring Story or maybe Supportive Friend to make it a higher vibe to win on that final turn. It's also pretty good, like if they clear your board, to kind of claw your way back onto the board. All that being said, I I don't think it's the strongest choice, and I think you're better off just to focus on not getting your board cleared by just playing really aggressively around finding Popcorn Penguin to clear their board and locking them down. Because also Koi Penguin just doesn't really work that well with too much caffeine. But if you're already going down the Koi Penguin route, you can also try putting some What a Twists in. So then basically, right, your Koi Penguin gets flopped, you unflop it. This can also work with other one of your penguins. In the mirror, it can end up winning you the game, especially if you haven't found Green Mega Penguin. But again, like, I think this deck works better when you really focus on your own win condition instead of trying to have all these ways around it. And then the other card that like people play, which also I usually see it together with the what's it called? You play it together with like What a Twist is Bashful Swordsman Penguin. So, right, this is very interesting because you can actually remove their Green Mega Penguin with it, like if you're really far behind. But again, this deck just does not play well from behind. And I personally, I think the right way to build it is you basically play to win, and if you fall behind, you just try to catch up, and you'll lose some games because you just never found the right cards. But right, you do have a decent amount of card draw and cycle in it through BrainyPenguin and SneakyPenguin that it's it doesn't really happen that often that you're behind just because it has such an explosive start. And in the mirror, right, the way we focus on the mirror is really just about HotRod. So those are kind of some other tech cards I've seen people run, and I'm sure I'm missing some. But all right, so we've talked now about kind of how to build the deck. Let's talk briefly about budget substitutions. So this deck, right, it runs 4 Green Mega Penguin, and this is an epic, and I really don't think this deck works without 4 of them. You can run it with 3 maybe, but, like, if you only have 2 Green Mega Penguins, just play, like, the generic green Buffy deck. Like, this deck is really, really focused on Green Mega Penguin. Same with Popcorn. You can probably get away with 3, but without Popcorn, this deck is, it's just gonna be very difficult to do well with it. Brainy Penguin. Brainy Penguin is okay if you don't have it. If you don't have Brainy Penguin, just put in some more tech cards. It's nice to have the draw, but it's definitely more of the nice to have. Same with Hot Rod. I think this is a rare. Yeah, Hot Rod. If you don't have Hot Rod, play the What a Twist, play the Swordsman, play play the Koi Penguin. There's a lot of play more two drops. You can play up to 14 two drops just to really guarantee that you get a fast start. Um, you could also maybe play Not a Rod anymore. I don't know. Like, there's a lot of other options that you could do for Hot Rod because it's just one of the tech slots. Okay, so that's the setup of the deck. So let's just talk about the strategy. So we already talked about it quite a bit going through the cards, but basically you want to just play the 2-drop to get on the board quickly, win the vibe check, and then just get to Green Mega Penguin as fast as you can. You're going to then basically remove their board and lock it down with Too Much Caffeine and Popcorn Penguin. And yeah, you just keep kind of then going through that. I think the kind of special considerations are you really want to identify what your opponent is playing because, right, you have those 2 win conditions. And for different decks, different win conditions matter. So against a yellow deck, you really need the Popcorn Penguin. So you want to then like use your Sneaky Penguin and Brainy Penguin and your BounceHouseRod to make sure you get to the popcorn as quickly as possible. And ideally multiple popcorns because they probably have a way to remove the first one. It's usually the second popcorn that really locks out the game. Then against a mirror, Popcorn Penguin is completely irrelevant. You just need to get your Green Mega Penguin down as quickly as possible. And so that's also one thing with this deck, which I found is very helpful. It's very tedious to do, so it's not for everyone, but right now, the community that's playing Vibes is small enough that you can actually write down what deck every single person you're playing is playing. And so, right, I just maintain a list and I say, okay, when I match up against someone, what did they play when they last played me? And then you can actually mulligan for that matchup. And like, right, if I know they're playing yellow, I will know I need to really aggressively mulligan for popcorn. And if I know they're playing the mirror, I would throw away popcorn. Because this deck is so fast and has such a like restrictive game plan, the mulligan is super, super important. And so that's also why I think potentially in like a open list tournament where you like know what deck your opponent is playing ahead of time, this deck also could be very interesting just because it's one of those decks where the mulligan matters a lot. Like there's other decks where you're just always mulliganing for the same cards basically regardless of the matchup, but this is not one of those. Um yeah, okay, cool. So that's kind of the overall strategy of the deck. And yeah, so let's see the deck in action. So we're gonna play a few games and yeah, hopefully we'll perform as much as I've been hyping up the deck. All right, so we definitely want to keep a 2-drop, and for this deck, Introvert is by far the best 2-drop. Because we don't know what they're playing, there's a question to keep GotEm or not, but I don't think we will because we're playing basically the caffeine. Like, whenever we're playing the caffeine deck, we really wanna look for the key cards. So for the Popcorn Penguin, for the Too Much Caffeine, and for the Green Mega Penguin. So, yeah, so let's see. So we've got the Introvert Penguin to start, which is the strongest start for this deck. And, um yeah, and yeah, it is like again, the reason like I know that I didn't play this person already is I keep track of everyone I play, and that only works right now because the player base is so small. Like as the game grows, it's going to become harder and harder. But because there's probably like maybe I have like 150 people that I've played in the last few days, and right with the mega with this deck, it's very important to mulligan correctly. All right, so um so yeah, so looking at the cards here, so we'll want to play no, so we're gonna play Introvert on turn 2. So we don't need 2/2 drops because with this deck, the only purpose of the 2-drop is to play it on turn 2. And so we only need to keep one, which is why Supportive Friend makes a good rod. We don't want to play too much caffeine on the first turn because if we play too much caffeine, then Introverted Penguin will get flopped by the too much caffeine and we won't actually get the intended effect. That being said, we don't actually have anything where we're ramping into. And so I think that's going to be potentially a problem for this hand. So we'll see how it develops. I do think I'm a little yeah, so yeah, we really want to get a popcorn or a green mega penguin, but we have a few more turns. Misplace is really there's only a few matchups that this is good for because this is one of the tech cards. And so we'll see what they're playing. So if they're playing Bismo, Misplace is what it's in there for, and it can also be useful against or yellow or green, depending on what happens with if they have to play basically their finisher, but they can't actually finish the game, that locks them out from future turns. Okay, so it is yellow, and for yellow, we're playing around put your flippers in the air. So this is a really not a great hand. So HotRod is very useless against the yellow matchup. So we'll start using that as the rods. And so we'll win the vibe check here. And so with the introvert, we're going to ramp rods really quickly. But again, we have nothing in our hand right now we're ramping into. So this is going to potentially be a problem. So yeah, so we'll get that. And the question is going to be when to play too much caffeine. Because as soon as we play too much caffeine, then we will stop winning the vibe check. But really the whole point of ramping rods is to get to turn 5 as quickly to 5 rods as quickly as possible, because that way we'll be able to play the green mega penguin. Um, then on the other hand, right, I want to keep them off of the ability to play the card draw cards. And so yellow, right, with pot stirring penguin, um, yeah, with pot stirring penguin, right, that's going to produce 2 pudge. So I want to prevent them to keep them off of 3 pudge because 3 pudge is both of the card draw cards. And so the question is, can they get to 3 pudge this upcoming turn? And that would require them to have a flying penguin. And I don't think that they have a flying penguin. Okay, so popcorn penguin is perfect. That's exactly what we need against yellow. but we don't want to play it this turn. We'll play HotRod as another rod just because, again, HotRod is not useful in this matchup. But Popcorn Penguin is not what we want to play this turn because we want to get more value than just a one-for-one trade. And also when we play Popcorn Penguin, then they can not do anything. So the question is, do we play too much caffeine? And I think I won't play it this turn just because I want to protect my popcorn penguin. So the turn I play it, like I want to like lull them a little bit to play out a little more aggressively here. Okay, they didn't play anything else. So that's definitely weird. So I wonder if this is either a really bad draw from their side, or maybe this is some sort of much more defensive yellow deck, like with Yum Yum in it. And so definitely something to think about. So now the question is if they didn't play something that turn, or they're saving up for a big extrovert turn. That also could be the case. And so do I want to play the popcorn this turn? Because if I do, right, they can just pass another turn. So that's very interesting. So okay, so I think I'm gonna play the GotEm because I'm kind of thinking that maybe they're gonna play an extrovert on the board next turn, and they're kind of playing it slow to have this big explosive extrovert turn. I'm still I'm still hesitant, but I think I'm gonna play the too much caffeine this turn. Yeah, let's play it this turn. I'm kind of running out of time because I'm thinking too much. But yeah, the reason I think it's okay to play it this turn is right now we have 8 points, 9, 10, 11. And so with 11 points, the game, like, right, the game ends when you're on 14. And so we're okay to take one turn. Yeah, this is what I thought. I thought they were going to play an extrovert, an unprotected extrovert. And so now the question is, okay, so I'll flop the pot stirring penguin. But okay, so this is actually not ideal because I wish, well, no. So okay, so yeah, I'm gonna have to got him the extrovert. So it's good that we played the got him down because um yeah, I would love to wait and use popcorn penguin, but the problem with doing that is if they play additional minions or penguins on their turn, the will get boosted outside of the range of the popcorn penguin. So we'll take care of the extrovert right away. I think it's just important because the extrovert can really grow out of control. So okay, so we're gonna take care of the extrovert, and once we do that, the question is, do we play popcorn on this upcoming turn? Because I'm a little bit hesitant to do it because I want to get more value from it. But on the other hand, if I play popcorn now, that will force them to not play anything next turn that's less than 2 vibe. But, right, because they're playing Extrovert, I think they're playing the more mid-rangey deck. So I do wonder if they have, more Shy Penguins and slower cards in their hand. Oof, we're drawing all of the tech cards in our hand. So I kind of think maybe I'm just gonna play Misplace on the Extrovert. I know this is um kind of not what Misplace is in the deck for, but what this is gonna allow me to do is, by playing Misplace on the Extrovert, it's gonna prevent them from playing future Extroverts. Really, Misplace is not in there for this at all. The only reason I'm making that play is just my hand is so bad, and I don't really have what I need for moving forward. Like, I'm still missing Green Mega Penguin, which is what I'm going to need to close out the game. All right, good. Now we're going to be able to play popcorn next turn because we have two targets. So we're going to flop the pot stirring penguin, and this will be um but yeah, so the unfortunate thing is, right, because of the way introvert penguin works is okay, so that was probably a mistake. I probably should have put the buff on introvert just to see because I think this might be a newer player because it kind of looks like they're playing the starter deck. And so if I would have put the buff on introvert, maybe they would have flopped the introvert thinking it's the bigger penguin. But either way, I feel like we have a good target for the popcorn penguin now. Like, right, we're gonna get pretty good value for it. We're gonna get at least a two penguins, assuming they don't have removal. Okay, so sliding penguin is amazing because sliding penguin can go with popcorn penguin next turn. Right, that's one of the core combos of this deck. Is you basically play the popcorn penguin, and then you have the sliding penguin that will boost it up to 4 vibe. And then when the popcorn penguin is at 4 vibe, then it's going to be, able to take out things that are up 4 vibe or greater. So overall, I think we're in a good position right now. And like, yeah, so what because also we're gonna be able to keep them from playing, playing spells that cost Pudge because, right, what we'll be able to do is we'll flop the Wizard Penguin, and then we're going to use the Popcorn Penguin to take care of the, we'll flop the Popcorn Penguin to take care of the pots, or we'll use the Popcorn Penguin to take care of the pot stirring penguin, and so that actually keeps them at 0 Pudge, because one of the things, the ways that the yellow deck overruns you is that they just play their card draw cards, which can chain, right? Like Prepare for a Wild Night can go into another Prepare for a Wild Night, which can go into another Prepare for a Wild Night, and then, or into the Check the Yellow pages, and then they have a giant hand and they overwhelm you. So, one of the nice things with this deck is you can use Too Much Caffeine to kind of keep their penguins flopped. All right, finally we got Green Mega Penguin. So we're gonna play that. We're gonna do that. And so now we still we still can't win this turn. So we're just gonna wait one turn. We'll play it a little slower. It's a little dangerous to play slow against yellow, just because yellow can have very explosive turns. So we'll see. All right, so Mysterious Penguin is coming up. Well, it isn't even activated just because they don't have 4 penguins yet. So yeah, this is just a clinical game of how this deck works. Like, we had a really slow start, but it's also, I would say, yeah, I'm pretty sure this is a yellow starter deck. So this is probably a newer player. And so I feel a little bad queuing into them because I want them to have a good experience early on in their game playing so that they stick around longer. But, we have to do our best to win, especially because it's near the end of the season. Um, so yeah, so all right. So overall, again, now, right, you can see that interaction with Green Mega Penguin, where Green Mega Penguin basically is protected by too much caffeine. And so then it's going to be, yeah, like they can't use it on that. Okay, so Inspiring Story is perfect. All right, we're going to also play the Sliding Penguin as well. The reason we're going to play up to 15 is even if they have some removal, like not your keys, they can still only knock us down to 14. So I think this game is pretty much locked up. Like, even if they play a Shy Penguin, we can too much caffeine it. If they play what else could they do? If they play like 2 pot stirring, okay, so maybe if they play basically pot stirring, flying penguin, and a yum yum, then we might be in trouble. But in that case, I think we can keep them off of 5 Pudge. But it looks like they're not doing that. And okay, so good. And when you do these, it's very important with this deck to get these triggers in the right order. In this situation, it didn't matter. But yeah, so that's a good end to the game. And it kind of shows again, well, again, we were playing the yellow starter deck, so it's not like a great showing on the power level of the deck. But overall, and we had a kind of a slow start, but the deck, is very strong and managed to pull through. Yeah, so checking my notes, I don't know this person, so I don't know what they're playing. All right. So looking at the mulligan, so we have basically the wombo combo start for this deck. So having Introvert Penguin into Sliding Penguin into Popcorn Penguin is the absolute best way to start with this deck. And then Green Mega. So this is basically the dream hand. The only thing that's wrong with this hand is we don't have a too much caffeine. If this BounceHouseRod was a too much caffeine, this would be the hand that you would pick. Like, if you could pick your hand from scratch, that's what you would pick. We're gonna play Supportive Friend as a rod instead of BounceHouseRod, and the reason we're doing that is because BounceHouseRod might have utility later. And again, with this deck, we only ever need a single 2-drop. The only reason that this deck even runs any 2-drops is for turn 2. You never need them later in the game. They will always just become rods. And so you just need the 2-drop so that you can play Green Mega Penguin. And you also need the 2-drop just to get to turn 4 quickly. So it's their turn 2. So this is usually when we will figure out what they're playing. Okay, so they're playing yellow. And so the nice thing about yellow is that the Sliding Penguin, Popcorn Penguin is a good combo. Oh, GotEm. GotEm is also, it's one of the tech cards that I'm running in the list. And GotEm is really good against yellow in 2 situations. One is if they like play an extrovert on the board and don't protect it. And the other one is there are times at the end of the game when they're going to play put your flippers. If you have enough too much caffeine on the board, you can force them to basically flop everything with more than 2 vibe. Then they will have to play put your flippers on the air on a 2 vibe minion, and in response to that, you use GotEm. So there are probably about 30% of yellow games that specific interaction is the end of it. Okay, so Misplace has some uses against yellow, but I think I'd rather keep the optionality of the BounceHouseRod. So I'm definitely playing Sliding Penguin this turn. So the question is what to rod here. And Misplace, really the only reason for this in the yellow matchup is if you get into that situation where they play one, put your flippers, but it doesn't end the game for them, then you can play Misplace against put your flippers the second time. That being said, we can always get it back with Bounce House, although I highly doubt. Like this deck runs such a lean ship that the Bounce House will either be used or rotted by the end. But I'd rather have the optionality for, let's see, what would be perfect? I need a too much caffeine. So if a too much caffeine becomes a rod, then the Bounce House Rod can quickly claim that. All right, so they're playing. Okay, so what? So they're gonna play another. Okay, so they're gonna play Penguin Who Zooms. Okay, so they're What a Twist. So any deck that's playing Twist, What a Twist, is aware of this matchup and is trying to tech against it. So we already know that that our opponent knows what we're playing, and they're so basically they know what we're playing, and they're specifically built their deck in a way to try to beat us. However, What a Twist doesn't really help against the Popcorn Penguin machine, which is about to start. Okay, so they're gonna play their twins on the Penguin Who Zooms. So that doesn't bother us at all, just because they're twins, they're basically spending a card to get a card. So it's not really card advantage. Personally, I don't think that their twins is good in the standard yellow list. I would run that in a specific combo deck where you're looking for certain pieces, but I don't think that the Penguin Who Zooms qualifies as that. I also think that I would have played their twins on the Penguin Who might bring a +1, but maybe I'm. Oh my. Okay, so this is amazing. So we got the second Popcorn Penguin because one of the challenges with this deck is that Popcorn Penguin just gets removed at some point. Okay, so the question is, and so having a backup means they're going to struggle to get rid of the first popcorn. As soon as they do that, I'll just drop another popcorn. So the question is, do I play this as a rod or not? So I'm going to play Mega Penguin next turn. So that's, so we're at 8, 9, 10, 11. So we have 2 more turns. So we're going to play 2 more rods and we'll play down. No, so no, so I can afford to hold the Bounce House Rod for 1 more turn because I'm really trying to get that too much caffeine. And so, like, yeah. And so the other reason that I don't want to play the second popcorn is Sliding Penguin. Like, if I play the second popcorn, I only have Sliding Penguin, which can like boost one of the popcorns. And that would enable them to put me in a situation where my popcorn has to basically ice itself. All right. So you always want Sliding Penguin to the left of popcorn. And these triggers get created in the order that you played the card originally, which is kind of nice for this situation. All right, so we'll use that on the popcorn, and then we'll get rid of their first penguin. So the thing with yellow is, as long as we can kind of keep their penguins under control, keep them at less than 3 pudge, they're not going to be able to play the card draw cards. So overall, it's a good start. Like this is like the dream start for this deck, especially against yellow. Like having Sliding Penguin into popcorn with a second popcorn as backup and Green Mega Penguin in the hand is very good. That being said, we're still missing too much caffeine. All right, so we didn't get it either as a rod. So I think this is the turn where the Bounce House, well, I guess we'll play the Gotham. Okay, so the Bounce House Rod is going to have 1 more turn left. And, right, we'll eat up the Introvert Penguin. Oh, so I miscounted, right? Because I forgot that we're gonna lose a card because Green Mega Penguin uses a card. So, all right. So what we have going on now is, hmm, yeah. So I think we're in a pretty good state. Like, so 12. So right, ideally we want to end the game next turn. And so the only way we would be able to end the game next turn, right? Because we can get to 14. So we're gonna play the second popcorn, which I think is fine because we have two vibe targets, but we're not if we draw a specialty rod. And so this might all go back to that turn where I didn't play the BounceHouseRod, like where I was debating if I should play it, now it might require us to have this game go on one more turn, which is not ideal. And here now you can see, well, actually now playing the second Popcorn Penguin could be a problem, right? Because if we play the second Popcorn Penguin, they only have 1-2 vibe and we don't have a way to boost it. Okay, so we can't play the second Popcorn anyway. So I think we're gonna have to play one more turn anyway. And okay, so they play the check the yellow pages, which was um which was expected but not good. So let's see what they get. Okay, they get more 2 vibe penguins. So, yeah, so the question is, do we play the popcorn now? Because if we do, they can basically just pass and do nothing. But if they do nothing, do we then just win the game? Um, yeah, so maybe that will be fine. No, because then the popcorn will remove itself. So okay, so this is kind of a tricky end game. All right, well, it doesn't matter. We're not going to be able to end the game anyway because we can't get all of our cards played. So we have to go one more turn. All right, we still don't have the too much caffeine. So the nice thing is we got HotRod, and the reason HotRod is actually nice here is if they get a shy penguin, then our Green Mega Penguin right now is going to go up to 8 and then 9 with HotRod. So we're one turn closer to being able to like be bigger than a shy penguin. But um yeah, I'm a little worried we might get overrun here just because, well, they only have 3 rods. So I think we'll actually be okay. Okay, so this turn um we are going to be able to play what's it called? We are gonna be able to uh, play popcorn next turn because 'cause I'll have 2 vibes. Also, we definitely wanna get rid of the daydreaming because if we don't get rid of the daydreaming oh, no, I guess because our popcorn is boosted, it's safe from daydreaming. So, not a big issue, but okay, so we're in a good position here. Um, okay, so they have a not your keys, which is, not ideal, but it's also not bad because we have the second popcorn. So, it's kind of just slowing them down a little bit. And so next turn, we could really get on 14, I think. So, right, because when we look at our hand, we're on 13. So we're gonna have 15 cards because we're gonna get 1 rod. So we'll be able to get to 15. And getting to 15 is really nice because then if they play another not your keys, then we'll be able to um and we still haven't gotten the too much caffeine. But anyway, we'd still be able to win. Oh, here it is. Okay, perfect. So this is exactly what we need. So again, this is another is there anything we actually want? No. We don't need anything there. So now we're at 15. We have our popcorn, we have our too much caffeine, we have our green mega. So even if they play something big, we'll be able to flop it with too much caffeine. And yeah, so overall, I feel like we're in a really good space. I don't know if yellow can get out of this. All right, so Wizard Penguin is not going to help them, but they were running what a twist, or was that the previous game? I'm not sure. I think that was this game. So okay, so let's see. So now everything is in the right order, right? The main thing is we want to make sure that we boost the popcorn with the sliding. So okay, so we're gonna have Popcorn Penguin remove the pot stirring penguin. No, should we? Yeah. So we'll flop the we'll flop the penguin who zooms, and we'll have popcorn penguin get rid of the pot stirring. And the reason we do it like this is so that they're down to 3 pudge. And when they're down to 3 pudge, that will prevent them from playing another not your keys to get rid of the popcorn. Either way, I think we're in a good state because we're at 15 cards now. And so, yeah, being at 15 cards, we should win the game now. I don't think that there's a action that they can play for 3 yellow pudge that will get them out of this. So I think overall it's another good game for the caffeine deck. And again, this game demonstrates again, right? Like right, when we talked earlier, there are these 2 win conditions. There's the Green Mega Penguin Caffeine, and then there's the Popcorn Penguin. And against yellow, you really need that Popcorn Penguin win condition. Thanks everyone for watching. And if you like this type of content, don't forget to subscribe and like or comment on the video, and I'll catch you next time.